Welcome back to the podcast, friends. Today we're venturing into the space where engineering leadership meets true human potential, and our guide is someone who has mastered both worlds. My guest, Amaia Lesta, brings over 20 years of experience in technology, from leading complex projects and high-performing engineering teams to her current mission as a team coach and facilitator, transforming the way organizations actually work. Amaia has seen firsthand how constant organizational changes, endless restructuring, and the rigid obsession with frameworks can drain energy, erode trust, and dim the spark in even the most talented of people. But she's also seen the flip side, how targeted, thoughtful interventions can reignite motivation, build psychological safety, and unlock truly extraordinary results. In today's episode, we'll explore her journey from the technical trenches to the art of coaching, uncover her signature workshop magic, break down the methods and frameworks that actually work, and discuss why the meta skill of learning and how to learn might just be the most important leadership superpower of them all. Whether you're an engineer, a leader, or simply curious about how people grow and thrive in complex environments, this conversation is packed with insights you can put into action today. Let's dive in. Let's get this kicked off. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce my host, Amaia Lesta. And Amaia, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. I know it's super important for the entire IT school community and for all of the communities that work in the tech industry today to actually have some insight from one of the people that has led, that has learned, and that has done really extraordinary things in her career. So that's why I wanted to ask you, Amaia, first and foremost, hello, how are you today?
Hello. I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you for having me. Anyone who is interested in technology and IT, I'm very honored for you to be listening to us because I think this conversation and conversations that you and your podcast and through IT School enable are very important. I I believe technology nowadays is present everywhere, and what we do as people in technology will shape the future of society. So,
Oh,
really
absolutely.
grateful to be here today because it's
Thank you
really
so much. Thank you so much for that, Amaya. And it's actually, I love how you phrase that because it does unlock human potential and everything. And just for our audience to get to know you a bit better, I did want to ask, who is Amaya Lesta?
Oof, I guess how long is this podcast?
We can take as long as you want, Amaya.
Well, today Amaia Lesta is a Spanish woman who considers herself to be a technologist passionate about making technology work for people. Is really about that, helping with technology create a better society. And I've played different roles through my career. I studied telecommunications engineering, have done project management, product management, engineering leadership, architecture leadership, different roles. And right now, Amaya is a person that is in this mission to help technology create a better society by helping teams working in technology to be performant and be healthy and actually motivated at work. I think that sometimes people ask me and I say, oh, I want really to help teams to want to work, to want to go to work every day because of what they do together. And not in a unhealthy way, burnout, psycho way, but in a way that is they feel valued, they feel okay, and they really actually go from a place of working in this team is great and we are doing great things. So
Oh, that's absolutely amazing to hear because I think that's kind of one of the blights of the last decade or so because we all, we invest a lot of time, we invest a lot of energy, a lot of creativity in the jobs that we're doing, but we rarely have the time, just to pause for a second and think about ourselves. So that's why it's really important to hear what you have to say about all of these topics, Amaya, because I think it's going to help a lot of people both professionally and personally. So just kicking this off, Amaya, I'd like to ask you, I think one of the most important questions that we can actually have for you is what inspired this leap from engineering leadership into coaching and facilitation itself?
well, I've spent 20 years in technology roles, the majority leading teams, and I have been very lucky, but I think actually no, because I've worked with brilliant people in every single team. What makes me feel that brilliant people is people in technology in general. There might be exceptions, but really great people that were creative, that were really invested in learning, applying, and creating great products and services, committed people, people that actually you mentioned learning, and it's part of the IT school, right? Is that want to learn, and being in tech is about that constant reinvention of oneself and constant learning. And yet, many times, that brilliance was stopped. And I realized with time that a lot of that was coming from an inability of many organizations of helping teams develop through all these change that working in technology brings. So I realized that that was something that could be done better in technology in general. I became obsessed with learning about it. I really became obsessed because I wanted to work with teams and in teams that were performant and happy to be there every day. So I said, well, I want to do this full time. Many other people can have fantastic technology vision and strategy, go deep and continue learning about the next technology. But if no one helps us to run better as teams, we will not get where we have to get or what we can get. And that's what drives me to, I'm interested in it and I can do it because I've done it. So I jump into being this enabler for teams in the same way that maybe we have scrum masters to help the team in the day-to-day. Well, let's have a team coach that helps the team develop as a team in the day-to-day, or let's have a facilitator that helps have specific conversations in a different way. And that's what really brought me here today and triggered that change.
That's absolutely amazing, Amaya, because as I was saying a bit earlier, I think this is one of the quintessential portions that do enable high performance. Because you can't, just be very okay at your, let's say, technical job or anything if you're not okay within you, with yourself and everything. So that's kind of where the key difference, I think, is going to be made for the teams of the future, particularly. I do want to ask you, there must have been a trigger point at one point or another. What did you notice in engineering teams that made you realize the need for this deeper coaching approach?
That's a very good question because, as I said, I've been lucky enough to work in different organizations with different teams in different countries of the world, and I really actually a shift that happened to me that brought a lot of awareness of was being a team that is high performance means was when we started adopting agile delivery practices in our organization.
Mhm.
And as agile was implemented and there was amazing frameworks, or not that amazing, but useful way to create more value, what started to be very clear to me, and I think to others, that was still pulling back that value creation velocity was around how teams were developing. And we were seeing products and strategies of products and services going very fast. But the team development was not catching up. And that was basically my opinion and my experience because we were training people on how to manage backlogs, how to do retrospectives of delivery of products and services, how to do, I don't know, requirement gathering, empathy maps, and things like that. And those brilliant and super to the point ceremonies were lacking on the team development side. Organizations have individual development, your career plan, you have your conversations with your manager. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? But there was lack of that type of work at the team level. And even more important, a team works with other teams. It can be in their organization, it can be outside. A team doesn't work in isolation. So how this team develops and works through their development at the path of others around them so that they work in a partnership together is something that was lacking and for me was a big area of risk for the organizations that I've seen. And also, as I mentioned before, if those teams are not developing well, the value they are delivering, what they are creating, is not going to be as impactful as it can for society. So for me, it was that the point is we are refining product and service delivery and having really powerful conversations in that area. This one has to catch up so that the teams and development and the product development go hand in hand.
That makes a lot of sense, Amaya, because one of the things I've noticed in my career as well that we always think about developing practices that make our product development faster, that make our velocity greater. We deliver more and more, sprint by sprint, quarter by quarter, year by year, and everything. And that has a specific cadence. But if that cadence isn't matched by the rhythm where humans learn, evolve, and just are okay with this one, you're going to get gaps in velocity. And like, if you're driving a car that's running 300 miles an hour or something, and then another car, you get passed by something that's 200 miles lesser than you, you're going to have this turbulence thing. And I think that that's exactly how, you felt this change as well, because let's be real, technology is evolving at a rate that is faster than anything I've seen in history so far. And I think anything that anyone has seen in history. So this adaptation to change is very nice to see that someone's looking at the human aspect of, okay, how are you in this storm of changes? How are you performing? And how does performance actually impact what you do? So, Amaya, I wanted to ask you, going a bit more tactical into this, you've noticed the aspects that you mentioned a bit previously about technology, about teams, about the need for someone to feel good about what they're doing. But you're having these methods that actually do help people. Can you tell us a bit about these methods? What do you do specifically? I know you do some workshops, but can you give us a bit more detail about this? Because I'm sure there's more to it.
Well, actually, I could probably speak about this for hours, so I'm gonna mention just a couple that I wish I knew years ago. It's the kind of thing that
That's the gold one.
yeah, and I learned about them, and I fell in love. And
Okay.
I think there are two. When I think about how to support teams in the going through these changes that you have mentioned, or through blockers or certain circumstances, the work I do, I like to frame it in two different contexts. Sometimes you have a team that is in a blockage or in a one-off situation. So, for instance, if we continue in the context of developing products and services, particularly based on technology, it's about, well, the customer has this problem and how do we approach solving it? And I've seen a lot of teams spending a lot of time gathering requirements, prototyping, and it takes, even if you use Agile and you want to be fast, it might take weeks, depending on the company, even months, to get something out there. And so maybe a couple of years ago, I learned about design sprint, not to mix it with agile sprints, although they are very complementary. Design sprint is a methodology that was actually developed in Google. And the whole idea of a design sprint is to run workshops in a specific way. And these are workshops focused on, we have a problem that needs a solution. Let's use 4 days in a specific facilitated way. And in those 4 days, the team, 5, 6 experts, you don't need more, come up with a proper understanding from the people that have the knowledge of what the problem is, come up with possible solutions, decide which ones to focus on, implement something that can be shown as a solution to be shown to the users, and get input from the users about those solutions. And all of this is designing a structure that all of that happens in 4 days.
Okay, that's very impressive. That's a lot of focus for such a short period of time.
And actually, this method anyone is publicly available. Actually, Google later started using it with Google Ventures. So many startups have used it, and I don't know, Slack has used it to create, and it can be used for almost anything. Slack has used it at the beginning of their time to decide their marketing, to pivot how they were messaging their services. I've read some cases about pharmaceuticals. Pharma, which is very strict in terms of legal and regulatory, have used it and got brilliant results to make decisions. And actually, this study was with Johnson and Johnson's, and they brought some experts from outside in this small group of 6, 7 people and doing a design sprint. The pharma said that helped them so much to learn with this combined group of knowledge experts from inside and outside, and created so much value and avoided so much waste because of this concentration being in 4 days. So definitely design a sprint is one of the methods that I really like to help teams that have to innovate in a solution for a problem and get customer or user input fast without having to spend days on meetings just to document the stuff that is going to go to waste and produce actual outcomes and have first inputs from users of this is what the solution could be like. So that's one in terms of a one-off when you need a one-off intervention to make those decisions and move forward with that solution to the problem. Then the other aspects that can happen, and we were mentioning before, is you have a team that is in an organization and something is not working as it should, or maybe actually they have or they are just going through some kind of change. I don't know, sometimes when you merge teams or you split teams, or maybe even if there is a change on the strategy of the organization, the team is the same, but there is a change. So that requires the team to work in the long term so that the team can connect with what is expected from them now. So what is their purpose, their why, what they have to do to achieve that purpose. So what are the goals? How will they evaluate if they are achieving them? What are the roles that they play? Also how they work together so that they as a team are cohesive and everyone gets what they need to make it work for them. And last also is about how you work with the stakeholders of the team. Um, and all of this comes from the concept of systemic team coaching, which is really about the team understanding what does the future need from them that they can only deliver if they work together.
Mhm.
And I think this is very powerful because it forces the team to have clarity inside and clarity outside, to partner inside so that as a team they can achieve that purpose, and to partner outside. Because at the end of the day, if a team exists, it's not because of what the team thinks they have to do, it's because of what the outside has needs from them. Is why has your team
It's the
been created?
perception.
So you need to work with the outside. You need to work with the people that decided in the first place that you have to exist, and with the people that benefit from what you do in your day to day. So that those ways of working that you create work with internally, but also with those people that are directly impacted by what you do and what you don't do. And this type of work, the team coaching, what I really like about it is I've done a lot of training as a leader, and I've seen a lot of interventions. And when you have employee surveys, you do these sessions with your team and what is right, what's not wrong, what can you make better? And those one-off sessions, by all means, it's better to have them than not to have them. But
Of
they are
course.
not enough because here, culture is about what happens in the day to day. And for that, you need to support the team, not only to make those decisions of who they are, how they work internally, how they work with others, what they want to achieve, but support them in the day to day to do that. Because otherwise, it's very easy to go back to your whole habits. I make the metaphor is like if you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you, look, you are at risk of a heart disease, you are overweight. And they tell you, you have to do this diet and you have to do exercise and you have to do these pills. So that's your workshop. You have gone to the doctor, they have tell you what to do. Maybe you have decided together because it's a workshop, okay? It's collaborative. But if you don't do the work, nothing changes. And and that's why I like some of these frameworks that help the team, including the manager, to embed this in the day to day. Because when you are in the noise of the day to day, particularly in engineering roles, everything is for yesterday. There are always escalations. Um, it's very easy not to change. So by having someone and having a method that helps you embed in the day to day, if something having something that pulls you to that change, as opposed to the rest of the world that pulls you to stay as you were, um, that's where I think the magic of that team transformation happens. And really for me, it's, I don't know, it's something, as I said at the beginning, I wish I have known these methods before, and I wish I had have the chance to implement them and get the help to implement them in some of the teams I was leading in the past, because they are super powerful, and actually they help everyone. Actually, what I really like about those both methods, design, sprint, or here, is that everyone takes part, everyone has the space, and really is through that togetherness that we move forward. And for me, I've always been a very collaborative person. I do believe in the power of teams to have bigger impact than the power of individuals. And both methods are really cashing on that. What can we as a collective bring and create together that we cannot do if we are not together and we are each of us in our own way?
It's very insightful, and thank you so much for that quote, Amai. I'm going to quote you on that one because culture is in the day to day, and that's such a true statement. Because, when we're running different methodologies, either if it's waterfall or if it's agile, if it's Scrum, Kanban, you name it, most of the focus is usually on delivering. You need to deliver, you need to be on top of things, you don't need to delay things and so on because there's customer value and all that fun stuff. I really love what you just said, that it's sort of agile and Scrum, but tailored not towards the actual product delivery, it's tailored towards enhancing your human potential. And agile methodologies do work. I mean, there's a lot of historical data around it. There's a lot of statistics and things like that, but they were mostly focused on products. I love that now you're taking that approach and focusing it on humans because you have a good system going. Why not use it for multiple use cases? And I also love, just to summarize a bit, that it's very agnostic of the industry and the field because it doesn't just work in big tech. It doesn't just work in pharma. It doesn't just work in, I don't know, food retail stores or luxury brands and everything, because in all of these industries, you're going to have people. Guess what? We're all over the place. And it's really nice to see that, there's a focus on getting back to that. And one more comment that I had, Amaia, that I found is really, really powerful about the, let's say, employee satisfaction surveys. Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. We've all had that email or that conversation that happens, I don't know, every quarter for some good companies, every 6 months for some other companies, and every year for some other companies. One of the things is a lot can happen in that interval because it's really spread out increments of time. In 3 months, I can go from super happy to depressed just like that. Something happens, I need something. But with these methods, I think it's really important because you're implementing this philosophy into the day-to-day items that, circling back, does create a healthy culture, which is absolutely amazing to see. And I'd love to see more of this going on in the industry and more companies focusing on this mental productivity, this let's say mental safety and productivity coming from good things. Which it does make me ask you, Amaya, can you tell me of a moment in one of your workshops or one of your sessions where something just clicked for a person or a team? I know it's clicking for me, but I want to hear some of your experiences with this as well.
I, I would probably say one that has happened in a few teams. And what I like about it is the simplicity and the beauty of it. When I work with teams with team coaching, normally someone brings me in. It might be the leader, it might be the manager of the leader, and normally it's about, I will give you the example of one team, but it's not the only one with this case. So the founder of a company brings me in. They are scaling in terms of the number of customers, have a successful product, and they feel that the team is not very proactive on adapting, on deciding how to change their processes to adapt to this level of workload in terms of number of customers. And it looks like they want the team to be more proactive, and they have also come with ideas to the team, but the team didn't really like them, so they were in this
resistance.
Yeah, so it's like they don't offer anything, but they don't want what they offer. So, and we really want, and the managers were very, very clear on the explanation. We want them to be performant and to be okay. We care about them not burning out. We care about them liking to come to work. and we need them to perform. So we want them to be more owning of their own future and destination and how things change in their department, in this team. So I was brought in into this team. So the first thing that happens is, an outsider is coming here. What's going on? Fear happens. Resistance happens. And I start with a very simple activity, the conversation with them. And actually what I love that you mentioned before the word pause, because I really like to bring pause to how I work with teams. So normally I start with some simple, a minute or so, breathing exercise so that people are calm, because you come from the meetings, you come from the stress, particularly when I meet them at the end of the day. So
That's a constant. I'm guilty of that myself. I'm always agitated.
So I just bring a minute of breathing that helps them calm down, and actually have that minute of by itself is already very powerful. But what I did in this situation with the team, we did the breathing, and then we did a simple exercise that is what 3 words. So I asked every team member, in this case was virtual, so we use like an anonymous way to do a word cloud. What 3 words describe your team today?
Mm-hmm.
And then we asked them, what 3 words do you want to describe your team in the future? Actually, in a year's time. I always provide a time frame, depending on when the leadership team has asked me they want the change. I really like to do short frame so that they see it more palpable and close. But it has to be far away enough that it's not very overwhelming, and it can create kind of this motivation for the future, right?
It's also really good because you're honing in on the actual root causes of what some of their distress might be. Because if you're saying that, okay, let's look at your team today, okay, you have it. Then let's look at your team in the future. Between now and the future, there are some things that must fill in that puzzle, and those usually are the ones that you can focus on. All right.
And actually, what happens with this activity is that the words, it's not that you go into the logic. Okay, let's be logic. What's going on here? About the problem. No, this is really about tapping into the emotions, and being overwhelmed or being motivated is not logical, it's emotional. Then we can create the narrative, the logical narrative about it, but a lot of it is emotional. So in this case of this team, they did the words, and some of the words of the present were a little bit, let's say, I was supposed to say negative, but words are not negative. The interpretation we do about them makes them negative. But some of them were really on the overwhelmed side of things. And when we did that, and then we enabled a conversation between them, the room changed. The energy in the room changed because they understood each other. And we didn't know who provided each word, but there was a conversation about them. And actually remember an employee saying to another employee in the group, a team member saying to another team member, that she was not aware about how, because someone used the word sad, they were, and how much that was really touching them and mattering to them. And that got them into, yes, we want to do this work because we want to become that future team. Because I don't want the people around me to be feeling like that if I can help not to be that way. And this is a 15 minutes conversation. It's not longer than that. And that's why I like this. When you really know how to facilitate some conversations in a short period of time, you can create big shifts in the team. And for me, I have had the same exercise with other teams, and it's always the same. It always brings a level of connection at emotional and human level. I was reading yesterday a survey, no, it's a book around team habits. And kind of, you are always with the 80% of people you are with are always the same at work. So
you build your groups of
So you want them to be okay, and because you want to be okay also. So definitely this is one of the exercises. If someone is listening to this, if you are confident enough to run it in your team, there is very little to lose. Be aware of how to facilitate that conversation, but it can bring a lot of for me, it's the first step for a team to be willing to engage into changing and developing as a team. I totally recommend.
I just love how sessions like this, Amaya, usually you don't know why you're getting into a specific training or a specific workshop and everything, because most of us have already been to some of these or something that's similar, but not quite the same, and you expect they're okay. What am I going to be learning today and everything? Let's see how this is going to benefit me and so on. And then it hits you, because so little of the amount of trainings and let's say workshops out there are actually focused on me.
How I act or how I feel in a team. And it's always about other things, or, like you said a bit earlier, it's either the strategy, it's either the delivery of that strategy, it's the mission, the PNL, the delivery, the etc., 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 etc. But then I swear, I mean, I would be really, really surprised
To see exactly like, hey, how are you doing today? And I think that's kind of the, let's say, the magic that happens in your sessions and some of the stuff that you've done before. Because usually, there's that saying where you want to see yourself, you need to someone needs to raise up a mirror, like to really see yourself, and they're going to notice things, and you're going to think about things, and you're going to adapt them. And one of the most powerful things, Amaya, I think of what you're doing is that you do enable a healthy career evolution. That's why I also wanted to ask you, how does this, and I'm sure you've seen this or you have success stories and item of that sort, that you've seen this. What does this do to people in their career paths?
When you say what does this do, what do you refer to, Vlad?
um I'm thinking we all have a career path. We all have objectives that we want to pursue for ourselves in the professional world and our personal lives as well. But I'm sure there's let's say, something changes. Once you go through something like this, something changes. And I'm curious if you've noticed the benefits or of this sort of approach for team members individually and both as a team while they're progressing through their career time, or if perhaps they didn't work and they decided, heck no, I'm getting out of corporate, I'm going in to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to paint or something along those lines, like a dramatic change in profession.
Well, I do know someone that has done exactly that, move from tech to being a painter, but let's not discuss
Oh,
about
nice.
that. I think I'm going to say something. Sometimes I could take this in so many ways because career development, I have been working 20 years. And actually, in the past years, I have had the opportunity to mentor and coach a few women in technology. And
Okay.
what I have seen in their cases is that there was a lack of self-confidence and believing in themselves, and that their past experience matters. And something I have seen helping both women and men in technology, or helping people in technology in the past 2 or 3 years through career transitions, is that when you have with them conversations in the right way, they realize how their experience can be transferred into roles they have never done before. And particularly in technology, something that I myself had to go through to be able to move to the next level mentally, because all of this is about moving to the next level mentally. You cannot do it outside if you don't do it inside. Transformation doesn't happen that way. Uh, it's about some people are in the, oh, I don't know this technology, so I'm not applying for the job. I don't know that technology, so I'm not applying for the job. And by all means, in some teams, you have to really know that technology. But let's be honest, there are so many technologies out there that it's impossible for anyone to master all of them. But what is really valuable for organization is hiring someone that knows some technologies today and is going to be able and willing to learn many others in the future. Because in engineering and in technology, it's not about what you know today. It's about what you are willing to learn and apply in the future and every day. When I started working, I started with Wi-Fi when it was a new technology. Then I moved to collaboration technologies when Zoom was not a thing even. So the first collaboration technologies I was there, Then I moved to virtualization. Then I moved to cloud, DevOps, SRE practices. The more these technologies were open, the more technologies were there. And I think with people in tech realize that they have to focus on what they want to learn because they cannot know it all. And they really have to learn it to be able to apply it. And at the same time, be able to match their past experience to show in a new role, hey, I have this experience, I can reuse it here. Because I've done this learning with this technology, I can do this learning with a different technology. Doesn't happen overnight. I think that's also a challenge. I used to do this metaphor. Having been in a lot of reorganizations, I used to say to my managers, you wouldn't go to a gynecologist to treat your brain tumor. So why are you putting a software developer to configure routers? So we have to respect that it's complex, but it's not impossible. So helping people get unstuck and seeing that it's possible for them to reinvent themselves and use their past experience as a leverage. I was discussing yesterday with someone. He had 20 years plus of experience in tech, and now he's looking into a new role. And it was about, well, you are joining a new workplace with 20 plus years of experience. You will have junior people in that organization, people that may be new to tech. So you bring that seniority and that expertise. You bring that knowing evolution. You bring all those experiences that can help so much to new people. So you have a lot of value just because of you having a lot of history. But how do you value it? How do you put value into it so that you believe in yourself? So I really think, long answer to this question, but going back to people believing in themselves, by people realizing about the value of what they bring to the table is the most important way. And I think when we do this workshop facilitation and think coaching, because everyone brings value, they practice bringing value and understanding the value that they bring. So that's my long answer, sorry, but I think it's so
Oh,
important.
it's absolutely perfect, Amaya, because I got some answers myself from that, let's say, knowledge pill right there. Because nowadays, I think it's the time where nothing stays the same for a long time. Everything's here now, then it changes, something new appears, especially in the tech world. But it's not necessarily specific to the tech world. Everything changes super, super fast right now. And if you can just remember the ways you brought value, the lessons that you've learned over your career, it's quite easy to have a core functioning system that you can easily hotwire to something else. But to do that, to have that mental prowess and that inner power, someone needs to show you the way, Someone needs to point out, hey, here's what you can do. And one of the themes that I've noticed, Amaya, from your answer a bit earlier and from what we've discussed so far, is the theme of learning. And we promised our viewers that we're going to talk about this meta skill of learning and the rhythm of learning and how do you learn. Can you give us a bit more insight about that, Amaya? Because I can imagine that it's quite quintessential to everything that you're doing so far and everything that you've seen going with people. Talk to us about learning. Why is it a superpower?
Well, actually, I've always said that if I could be paid to learn, that's what I would do.
That's so insightful. Thank you for that.
Always, always, always. I mean, it's yeah, because I just love having my mind blown by something I didn't think about before, by something that is new to me. It just brings me joy. What I think has changed with me over time is my understanding of the concept of learning. And actually, now that I'm where I am, that I'm helping organizations be more performant and a better place to work through helping teams and helping collaboration at work, I find myself having to learn about new methods to solve specific problems every day.
Okay.
So now I am paid to learn. Maybe not in the way I thought it was going to go, but I am paid to learn. And for me, the importance of this is all about progress. At the beginning of the session today, I was saying, we are people in tech. there is always change. And if we want society to get better, we have to deliver better services. And delivering better means doing different. And you can opt to do different blindly, or you can do different informed. So I might learn a new, for instance, I might learn a new methodology to do problem solving or problem framing, and I learn it. I learn how it works, why it works, in which cases, how to adapt it, and so on. And then the real learning comes when I practice. And when I practice it, what I'm also learning, I'm also learning there, but not only the method, but what it is to do it live and what it brings to the teams. So the learning continues because it moved from someone else's experience teaching and setting to my own experience teaching and setting. So for me, learning is a skill that is necessary for progress. And one way that I have learned very recently about myself, that is really works for me really well, is listening to the content I want to learn about while I'm walking. So I might be going for a walk
It's
while I'm
movement, okay.
because and there is some research around that. There is some research that suggests that when you walk, you are creative in a different way, and you are able to connect certain parts of your brain in your thinking in a different way. I did a master's in organizational psychology three years ago, and I used to walk listening to the classes through a park around my house. And every time I pass for certain areas, I remember the things that I learned in the lessons. I'm pretty
Oh, that's
sure
nice.
case if
So
I
you made a
did.
correlation in your brain about, okay, this lesson here correlates with that tree over there or something. That's really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I don't remember as much when I'm learning in my desk. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it makes sense because it's not the same dynamic environment and everything. But also, this is the first question that came to mind, Amaya, and I might be touching on something a bit sensitive here, but I'm hoping you're going to help me get to a very productive answer. So, there are a lot of people right now in jobs, let's just call it generic jobs, that are kind of burnt out. I mean, it's been a rough couple of years. Your energy for just doing your job and going outside and doing some extra stuff outside of work and etc. is kind of, taking away the little energy that you have left. So room for learning isn't necessarily on the top of their priority list and whatnot. Do you have some advice for people to reignite that, desire for learning new things, for bettering themselves? How do they do it? How do they get out of that rut, that burnout phase?
I mean, in my own
Which is going to be rolled on one.
no, that's a good question, and I actually don't have an answer that comes easy. In my own face, because I've been through burnout myself. And for me, the whole concept of burnout really is about putting your own oxygen mask and not putting more on you, but getting rid of what doesn't serve you and doesn't help you. And actually, for me, I did go, in my particular case, your question is about how to connect with learning and so on. And in my case, what helped me was actually learning about how to avoid burnout. I was already there, but I still wanted to learn. And that
Okay.
drove me into learning about, and maybe people here don't like those things, but I really went into learning body and mind connection. So the whole thing of if you breathe is a fantastic tool that in a few seconds, if you know how to breathe, you can change your emotional state. You can
Oh,
calm
wow,
down.
that's really powerful.
You can calm down just with a basic, but there are different. I could speak about this for hours. Also, it's one of my passions. Really understanding what you can do outside your mind to stop your mind, because the burnout happens here, and there is this saying that it's kind of fool to the brain that brought you into that state, asking it to help you out. And that's why for me it's very powerful. Okay, what can I do to get out of here? So you can do breathing, the whole idea of walking, getting out of where you are, getting on the outside, doing some exercising. So I went to learn to how physical activity and physicality, the sleep thing, sleeping. And it's difficult when you're burned out, you might not be able to sleep. But on the other side, if you sleep, helps with recovery. So it's a long process. You cannot do like that and not being burned out. But having those tactics and techniques that help you calm down and help you at least go outside the fire, flight, or fright mode. I think it is the three Fs. That's very, very useful. Definitely get support from experts, therapists, psychologists, and so on. And then connecting to what, in my case, you asked me about learning, because I love learning. For me, deciding to learn something new was actually a way out, because I tap into something I'm passionate about. I I go on holidays and I listen to podcasts about team development because I love to know. Actually, I really like a podcast about founders of tech companies. So,
Okay.
and for me, that's learning. For me, learning about others and how they have achieved success or failure. For me, it's learning. So it's really about what is the one topic that you really like, and you will do even on holidays. And for some people, might be painting. Go and learn to paint. And remember what we were saying. Learning includes the practice. So if you paint more, you will learn to paint better. So
It's momentum, yeah. That's really powerful.
it's not always about bringing new information and learning something new, but might be about perfecting what you already know a little bit of. And so yeah.
So if I were to summarize, Amaya, because I'm taking notes as we speak, because you can imagine that I'm using all of this advice that you're offering here for myself as well and for our audience. So it would be about setting boundaries, just stopping that fire intake that got you there in the first place, in that state where you feel burnt out. So stopping, setting some boundaries.
Then breathing, substituting that fire for the air that you can breathe in that helps with anxiety and with pacing yourself and calming down, seeing things a bit more clearly. And three, and I think this is the one that hit me the most, is about connecting to your core passion, the things that started to drive you in the beginning, the things that are still there that, kind of make you get up and go and reignite that passion with a different kind of fire, but it's a fire that helps you this time. It doesn't burn you out.
100%.
Okay. Can't wait to start using all of this tomorrow, Omaya. So that's going to be an amazing day for me. Thank you for that. All right. So, and I also did have some questions here. How can someone know, Omaya, that they're growing in the right direction? Is it just a feeling or is it something that you can observe and measure? So I'd like to know I'm on the right path, How do I know that I'm the right path? Am I growing in the right direction?
I would have answered differently to this question 2, 3, 10 years ago. You have said, how do I know if I am in the right path? And the question that I will ask to you is, what is the right path and right for whom?
Okay.
Because
Let's assume for me.
So let's assume for you. So, and here is when it comes to, you have mentioned, is it about how I feel? Sometimes you might be feeling okay because it's easy, but might not be the right path in the long term. So I think also here there is a little bit of being aware of the state of you are more than you. We are all more than what we do for a living. So sometimes, depending on what's going on in your life, that is easy is absolutely fine. And actually, sometimes when it's easy, that gives you time and a space to think about what's next. So for me, when you have said is a feeling, and in my case, it is a feeling. Probably other people will tell you no, and but in my case, it has always been a feeling of, am I doing here the best I can do? Is it worth for me waking up at 7 in the morning to commute 2 hours? For me, and actually, I advise people to do at least twice a year this savings on time to do a life check. I call it a life check, and it's something that Adam Grant recommends. He's an organizational psychologist that is really great. And it's about, am I bringing value? Even if I bring value, do I like it? Or is it making me suffer and it's costing me the health? So, could I be doing something even better that will bring more value and will make me happier, or at least one of those? So it's not about am I okay? It's could I be better? And am I doing okay? Could I be doing better? And for me, the better always comes from a place of the value perspective more than the money perspective or but all is respectable. Every person in a given moment of time, they have their circumstances and they can decide what are the criteria for decision making. But for me, it really is about doing that evaluation. Does it feel that I could be doing better? Do I want to be doing better now? Can I do better now? Also, this reality check. And for me, it comes from that place. That's the way I evaluate it. I don't measure it, and the answers don't have to be. This goes back to don't do this the day that you have had horrible meetings with everyone, and that you have been hit by a car, and you have had to pay a broken, I don't know, broken glass in your house. So it's also about let's be aware of the circumstances. So have answers that really represent your last 2-3 months of a life. And actually, it's quite interesting you ask this because there is a research that Microsoft did a few years ago, 2021, about well-being for developers. And they encourage developers at the end of the day to do 5 minutes of reflection about the day. So doing reflection every day, I'm saying to you this every 6 days, but in this research, they encourage developers to do 5 minutes of reflection at the end of every day. And that alone improve their engagement and their perception of the quality of work.
That's super powerful. Again, a very short feedback loop for your day and everything. Okay.
And so that's really about maybe doing some of that daily checkup so that you don't wait until 6 months to realize, oh, this is crap. Or this is awesome. And you have not been as connected with the awesomeness because not everything is bad. You might be awesome for 6 months and you realize just at the end of the 6 months when you evaluate. So having these checkups more regularly is also very powerful.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you need to talk to yourself sometime, hey, are you okay? Am I okay? Just have that conversation with yourself because it's going to go a really, really long way. And I especially love, Amaia, that you said that
it's not necessarily something that you can measure. It's something that you feel, and that's kind of one of the things that I think we should be focusing more on in society in general, about the things and the way we feel about certain actions, certain situations that we're in and so on, because some things, and this is going to sound really, really weird.
You just feel them. You know if they're okay or if they're not okay. And you need to trust yourself for most of these things because that comes from a place where you've empowered yourself and you've allowed yourself, to start seeing things a bit more clearly. So that's an advice I'm going to use again. And I also wanted to ask you, Amaya, we've been talking about learning and things. What about unlearning? There are things sometimes that we want to unlearn or we need to unlearn when it's not serving us. Can you talk to me about unlearning a concept or something, or what the importance is, or if you see any uses for it?
100% yes. And I want to give a lesson. I'm not teaching anything to anyone, but I want to share something that as a manager I unlearned, and I think is very powerful, and maybe for new managers. I remember when I started leading teams, that when people were leaving the team, I felt I had failed because people were leaving the team. And with time, I unlearned that and I changed my thinking. And I realized, well, I have to help a person to go through their time in this team. Because I mean, and it's not with everyone. With a lot of people, what happened is they have outgrown that role and that team. They wanted something new for themselves. And they have been able to, actually, I remember one case that the person said to me and thanked me because of that opportunity in that team, they were able to get a different role in a different company that they were really looking forward to, that they really wanted to have. But if they wouldn't have had the one with my company, it wouldn't have been possible. Then is when a leader, and again, depends on the company you're working, but as a leader and as a manager, I learned I'm here to develop people. And part of development is that they will move on like your children. So the success is not that they stay in your team. The success is they stay in your team the time they need to be in your team. But you are helping a person, and this connects back to what I said at the beginning. I'm helping people develop to go into the next step, hopefully with quality as a person and quality as a professional, so that they have even bigger impact.
That's
So
very, very helpful.
my unlearning as a leader, help the people to be the best they can be in your team and grow out of it.
I just love how this is all connected, even the things that you wouldn't necessarily think initially that they're connected because you don't see them from the proper perspective given a
certain moment in time, but they make sense afterwards, and it's about trusting that process and everything. So, Amaia, we're approaching the close of our podcast today, and I wanted to ask you for an advice because that's how we usually end podcasts at IT School. We do ask our guests for advice. So,
If there's someone listening and they're feeling stuck or they're feeling out of place or something, what's one small thing that they can do today to shift?
I mean, if they feel out of place and they need the shift, I will go back to take a step back, breathe, be also aware of what's going on for you in the bigger scheme of things. If this out of place is in the context of work, actually, one advice I provided to someone once, because this person came from a long leave back to work and she was feeling out of place. And I asked her to ask her peers, what have they missed because you were not there?
Oh, that's so powerful.
So maybe you ask your colleagues, what do they value? But they might not be providing. But if you say, well, if I were to leave tomorrow, what will you miss? So you have to have and this is what it comes, everything is connected. So when you are low, asking those questions is very difficult. But you have to be kind to yourself. Really, really being kind to oneself is so important in this life. I mean, don't take for granted that you will always be healthy, that you will always be able to see, to hear, to walk, because that's not true. And sometimes we put so much weight on things that are just there's this whole other concept of, will I remember this situation in 10 days time, 10 months time, 10 years time? And if the answer is no,
Less energy invested into it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but definitely those breathe, get out, talk to a person that you respect, and but also that will be kind to you, to help you find what you might not be about yourself, those things that you might not be able to find right now because you are in the low, so you only see the bad things. And then make
That's very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Amaya, for that advice. I'm sure that this is going to help a lot of people in our audience, outside of our audience, and everything. And which kind of I wanted just to say that this has been a very valuable conversation, both for both sides of the, let's say, entity of humans. It's for both me as a person, both me as a professional, and I'm sure this is going to relate to a lot of people out there. So, with your permission, Amaya, we'd love to introduce you to the IT School audience and everyone there. We'll post the contact details for you, where they can reach you, where they can learn about their methods and everything, because we are trying to grow this community into both being very high performing, but also very healthy while they're doing it, both from a physical perspective and from a mindset perspective.
So, seeing as it's all connected, thank you so much for joining this group, Amaya, and thank you so much for all your wisdom and learning so far. I know
You had more than 20 years of experience to develop all of this stuff, and you're sharing it out back to the world right now. And we just want to say thank you for that. So Thanks for everything that you said, Amaia, today, and thanks for being on IT Schools podcast.
Thank you for having me, and actually thank you for creating the space to bring the opportunity to share these things and talk about these things. Is really important to power IT skills and tech skills with people in IT skills and people skills, and I'm very honored to have been able to share my knowledge and my experience with the audience of IT School. And yeah, please feel free to reach out anyone who might need I don't know, a brainstorming buddy like myself, or any kind of support through their journey in a team or as a professional. Very keen to support people that are followers of IT School.
Thank you so much, Amaia.
So, guys, please do reach out to Amaia. You know where to find us. You know where to find me. You know where to find IT School. Now you know where to find Amaia. So, please, that's an offer you can't refuse. Thanks so much. See you guys.